Hi, team. One of my main values right now is this idea of forever learning, that we have been given by God this amazing capacity to learn and grow, to increase in knowledge, to apply that knowledge. And for me, forever learning is an emphasis that I want to carry out throughout my entire life, and I want to encourage in other people. One of the greatest resources for learning is underutilized and undertapped in the athletic world, and that is the experience and wisdom of the small college coach. Small college coaches don't make a lot of money. They almost never write a book. They rarely ever get asked to speak at a conference. They rarely ever get much acclaim at all, and yet their day in and day out experience at shaping the lives of young people within the context of their sport is just an incredible resource. There is so much depth in what the small college coaches understand and know, and I want to try to give voice to that. So we're calling these interviews the voice of the small college coach. And I'm just excited for you to get a taste of what I've been learning for really the last 7 years or so as I've hung around coaches in the small college world. Today I have a super special privilege because one of the two coaches that got me involved in mental skills coaching for athletes is a guy named STEVEN Painne. And Steven is my guest today. Steven is a very, very good friend. Steven and I work closely together week in and week out. He's invited me into incredible spaces with his team, workshops once to twice a month. Working one-on-one with many of his players, being with his team, both in the practice environment, but also at tournaments and at events. And then Steven and I would collaborate basically after every single tournament. Steven's just an amazing coach, and he is an incredible resource for learning. Steven grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and had a very successful junior career as a golfer. Came to the United States to play for Coach Mark Immelman at Columbus State in Columbus, Georgia. Mark Immelman, who is now a primary broadcaster on the Golf Channel and golf broadcasts, and had a very successful college career. Steven had a good amount of success with some lots of awards and did very, very well. And then after got out of college, he did both some assistant coaching, pursued some professional golf for a while. But in 2014, he became the head coach at Point University in West Point, Georgia, a school that I've worked with closely for many, many, many years now. Since he got hired, Steven has been the Conference Coach of the Year 3 times, not even including this past year, which would be a 4th for sure. He has had, in this past season, the Point had 10 events. They won 6. And they finished top 3 in all 10. And they ended their year, when the season got shortened, with 4 straight wins. They were just on a roll, ranked number 2 in the nation in NAIA Golf. Steven just had an incredible team this past year. 2 first-team All-Americans, 1 second-team All-American. And Steven has established a program that is truly a top 5 powerhouse program year in and year out, and I am honored that you get a chance today to learn from the guy that has taught me and continues to teach me more than almost anybody else in the golf space about how to influence and work with young golfers in ways that are just exciting. Let's listen to this interview with my friend STEVEN Painne. All right, welcome team. This is another opportunity for my focus on forever learning to be played out with the voice of the small college coach, and I am super blessed today to have my friend STEVEN Painne, Point golf coach, with me today. And Steven, it is super good to see you, man. How you doing this morning?
I'm good, thanks. Always good to see you, Phil. Always good to hear your voice. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to spending some time with you.
Yeah, thank you, man. So before we get into like some of the questions I want to ask, it was just announced, I think last week, maybe week and a half, that you made one of the 5 national finalists for Coach of the Year this season. That's an amazing honor. Those of us who are around your program all the time and see what happens are not surprised by that. And so I just want to say congratulations on that. I hope that is affirmation of the work that you're really doing right now.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Also, a testament to the work the guys are doing. I think in in golf kind of sport, once you get a good crew together, you kind of just step back and let them do their work. And the guys want to roll. Unfortunately, when we had to stop, but we look forward to picking up next season. So yeah.
Yeah, really, really unfortunate. Steven's team started out they had a great spring season, and then they came back to start the fall season in February and literally won I believe it was four straight events, even beating number ones, number twos in the nation, and you guys got up to number two, and then the whole thing got called. So
Yeah.
real disappointment, but again, just an amazing accomplishment even in the shortened version. So let's get in. You and I talk a lot, and I always feel like I learn a ton from you. And so when I think of, for me, this value of forever learning, you're one of the faces and voices that come to mind. So I'm excited again today. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for the people that might see this to learn a little bit as well. So you've been in coaching now for several years and working with college golfers primarily. What's something you've come to love about coaching college golf? Maybe even that something that you didn't even expect, like you weren't thinking about it ahead of time, but now that you've been in it for a while, you realize, man, I really love this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you know, we talk about it a lot. For me, one of the main things that's just so awesome is it never feels like I go to work, you know? I mean, I love what I do. Like, really, I mean, it sounds a bit cheesy or cliche sometimes, but even sometimes to the point where, like, we'll be on weekend and I prefer life during the week because I just, I really enjoy being up there with the guys and being around golf. It's just really it's my passion, you know. So coaching allows me the opportunity to kind of, combine my passion and I say my purpose. I enjoy working with young people, pouring into their lives.
Yeah.
Passion obviously being golf. I guess one thing that I maybe didn't realize would be as great is just the relationships. I think maybe I got into it more for the golf side, but just some of the relationships that I've built, like players that have left. Some of the players that have left are some of my best friends now. So yeah, I think just the opportunity to get to hang out with young people on a daily basis. It keeps you young as well. You've probably seen that yourself hanging out with the guys. The one thing that kind of stinks is you get older every year and the batch of players stays the same age. They're always going to be 18 to 22. And we used to do these fun little events and stuff. And when I first got there, I think I was 25 or 26 to point. And, I could kind of hang with these guys. And now that I'm almost 35, it's kind of life is catching up. So that's the one part I don't enjoy is that they're only staying the same age. I'm only getting older. But no, the relationships is just great. We have a great group of guys. And every year, it just seems like we have awesome guys coming in every year. And I think that for me is just the best part is getting to really just spend time and grow with such a great group of guys.
Oh yeah, I can totally relate, man. I started using this term recently called generational agility, and it's this idea that even when you're so far removed from a generation, if you keep certain voices alive in your life and certain relationships alive, it helps you begin to continue that journey down the connection with a different generation. You're one of the people that are a bridge between somebody my age and somebody in the college world. So I appreciate the way you help me do that. I want to talk just a little bit about this. What I really call it kind of a craft, the art of influencing young people. And that is, it's an art and a craft because there's no science to it. There's no like formula. There's no like perfect way. But when you think about not so much on the golfing side, but the development of the young men that you've worked with, and you're still, I know, very close to many of them now that they're out of college. What's something that you feel like you've learned in these years since you first started that right now you kind of look back at the way you were trying to develop guys at the very beginning and you almost maybe you cringe a little bit or you think, wow, I was just so naive. Like what's something that would fall into that space of real learning for you on impact?
I think when you're younger, you kind of want to prove your point or prove your worth, you know. So I think when you're younger, a lot of the time you're trying to coach a lot. And one thing I guess I would learn, sounds a bit weird, but one of the most valuable things I've learned is coaching is to kind of coach less and let the guys figure it out on their own and let their talent kind of take over. Now, I mean, obviously, if someone's struggling, you're going to help them. But what I mean by that is you just kind of, I think the main thing with that relationship is trust. You know, if you can build their trust initially, you're going to have a lot more success earlier. I think a lot of young coaches, myself included, when kids come in, you try earn their trust by trying to show them how good you are or how much you know or whatever. And I think that's kind of, kids can kind of see that. They can kind of see through that. If you're just in it for a score or you're just in it for their ability, they can kind of see through that, you know. So I think for me, just developing that trust. And that's why I think the recruiting process is important, because you want to have a good match with the kid. Because it can't be, I mean, just like any relationship, if there's not that natural click, it's kind of hard to develop that, you know. A lot of the guys we bring in, we feel like we kind of hit it off right away. And there still is a process where you have to kind of earn their trust and build their trust. But once you do that, I think it's a lot easier, because once the kid or the athlete sees that you have their best in mind, then they know that they can kind of trust you with their golf swing, or maybe it might even be personal stuff. You know, we've had guys, guys will share personal stuff going on at home, or you try to help guys through stuff like that. So yeah, I think just kind of first building that trust, and then just kind of letting them do their thing, but helping them along the way, guiding them along the way. I would say that.
Yeah, I the trust part is, as you know, we talk about, to me, one of the, man, it is one of the most critical linchpins. It's kind of one of the fundamental pieces with young people. It feels like if you can't get some trust equity built up, then it's really hard to be corrective in their life, or to bring any kind of tough love or any kind of message that's not hard for them or not easy for them to hear.
Yeah.
And I think you're very, very good at doing that. I've observed that many, many, many ways. So what would you say is something that you feel like, maybe even a tactic or a strategy, maybe something you kind of focus on that you feel like helps to add some equity into the trust tank of a college player right now?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think for me it starts in the recruiting process. You know, I mean, if you can, we've heard feedback from a lot of recruits that the reason they came is they felt comfortable and they felt like they were coming into an environment that would fit in. And I'm sure we probably lost people because they didn't feel that, and that's fine. We don't want people coming who don't feel a good match, you know, and you're not going to be the right match for everybody. So I think from the beginning, one of my, I would say, maybe strengths, I feel like I communicate quite well. Communication, I think, is important. You know, we have a lot of international guys on our team. So I think when guys come in initially from overseas, I think if you can communicate well with them, that obviously helps, because they're in a foreign country. They don't know many people. And I was once in that situation myself, you know. So just to keep up with those guys daily, see how they're doing, just make sure that classes are going well and they're checking in. I think that initially just helps with that trust. And I mean, obviously that doesn't mean that I treat any of the American guys any differently. It's just I know their support system's a little bit different when they come in. Some of the guys are closer to home, but still we like to make sure that those guys get settled in nicely, because I think that's a vulnerable time for a lot of kids. You know, those first couple months in college, they don't really, everything's new. So if you can make sure that's an enjoyable experience, that transition is enjoyable, then yeah, I think that really helps build the trust from the beginning. You know, being somewhat connected to the game, like I said, I'm 33 now, so I've been in college somewhat recently, and I got no kids in college, and so I think we try to communicate with the kids and find out what works and what doesn't work, and just knowing that transition can be tough for some kids, and you hear kind of some stories of kids going other places where they just kind of dumped off in their dorm and not spoken to for a while. So we just try to learn from that, you know. I think the best way you can learn is from other people's testimonies. And so we try to hear what works and what doesn't work. If we have transfer kids coming in, why they transferred. And if we have kids leave, maybe ask them what it was, why they left, you know. I think just constant, like the title of your message, you know, constantly learning. I would also attribute that to coaching. You asked earlier what things that help. I think just being able to learn from your own mistakes, you know,
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
awesome.
time. I mean, we're gonna mess up. So rather than just trying to fight it, just learn from it. You know, I've made many mistakes in my first 7 years coaching, but if you can kind of learn from that and turn it around, it's going to help you going forward.
Well, I love it. And again, I've had the privilege of spending a lot of time with Steven and his team, both in practice environments, and we've done a lot of workshops, and I've spent some tournament time with them on the road and at events. I think, Steven, am I right? I think you had 18 golfers on in your program this
Yeah, we
last
got a
year.
big
Is that right?
roster. Yeah, yeah.
Big roster, and at least half of them were internationals. What was the
Yeah, we got about half
ratio?
and half because we do a little Ryder Cup, so it's quite fun. So we have it's almost like the perfect split where we can have international guys versus American guys. So that's always fun.
Yeah, and from multiple countries.
Yeah,
I know you've had Sweden, Argentina, South Africa, which is
yeah,
where your home country. And part of what's interesting in that space and fun for me to be around is just to see how you break down those barriers, and the guys I think really do feel connected to one program. It's really not a sense of two different camps,
yeah.
even though maybe your Ryder Cup emphasis pushes that a little bit. And I'm sure that's fun. Let's shift just a little bit and think about the mental and emotional space, which is obviously what I am trying to help guys in, and all coaches are dealing with young people in that world as well. And you've helped me understand a lot in that arena. But when you think about sort of the mental and emotional side of golf, and you think about college golfers coming in as maybe freshmen at 18, and then if they stay around, play until they're 22, 23. What's something you see that's kind of lacking in the mental emotional development when they first come into college that the really good players, the more elite college players, tend to develop before they're done? Where's
Yeah.
that progress happen for them?
For me, I think I always say there's kind of two main things which kind of define golf. There's always the whole question of how much is mental, how much is,
Yep.
physical, I guess. I would say that obviously your physicality is, I mean, it's obviously huge. I was looking yesterday, kind of in preparation for this world ranking, top 10 in the world ranking. I mean, you're looking at guys like Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy. I mean, they're all just, physical beasts when it comes to hitting the golf ball. So that part obviously is important. But when you get to the college level, the pro level, for the most part, everybody can kind of work the ball decently enough. So that's when that mental part, I guess, comes in. And I will say that that's where you've been a huge help to us. I think a lot of colleges and a lot of golfers, they focus primarily on long game, short game. That's kind of where their focus is. I think we had some success early, but I feel like one of the things that's really helped us kind of grow in the last couple of years has been our approach to the mental game, where you've been able to help us. I think that's really helped. And for me, the mental game is just, people often think of the mental game as just kind of, I'm struggling, I have the yips with this, I need to go for a mental lesson. And what you, I think, have taught us is the mental game is so much more. It can be course management, it can be preparation, it can be actually working on strategies for the course. So I think, to answer your question, I think the area I see players grow the most is as a complete golfer. So I would say from the term I like to use is just a holistic approach, being professional in the whole game. A guy I think of is maybe someone like a Justin Rose. I mean, they're just, they cross all their T's, dot all their I's, and they just take care of every single little piece of business. Very rare to see that in a freshman. We've had one or two come in that are like that as a freshman. And that's one of the things we try to preach in our program. If it's, ironing your clothes, it's tucking in your shirt, it's cleaning your shoes. I mean, we really want guys to own the whole thing. So if you come to the golf course for 3 hours, you need to be practicing smart and properly for 3 hours, as opposed to most freshmen, myself included, when I was in college. You go to the range, hit a few balls, hit a few putts, and then you feel pretty good about yourself because you practice for 3 hours.
Right.
And that's where I feel like you've been very helpful with us, is just kind of teaching us a lot of strategies, practice plans. And there's just so much to this game. I think that's why golf's such a great game, because you're just learning so many things as you go,
Yeah.
So I would say overall approach to the game, just being as professional as you can in every single area, whether it's, eating, working out, just, we try to get the guys to check as many of those boxes as possible.
Well, I love that, man. I actually heard this recently, and I don't, it's just a concept. But I think this would be consistent with stuff you and I talk about a lot. But I heard somebody say, when you think about what percentage of the game is physical, what percentage is mental, I heard somebody say practice is 90% physical, 10% mental. But when you go into competition, the higher the pressure, it's about 90% mental and about 10% physical.
Yeah.
And as you and I talk, if you don't have the physical skills,
Yeah,
if you don't have the technique, your mental can't overcome what you're not
exactly.
capable of doing, right? But on the flip side, what's also very true is you can have all the physical, technical ability.
Hmm.
The mental side will pull that level back under pressure. Like it won't allow it to show up, as we say a lot of the time,
Yeah.
when you really need it. So when you think about guys you observed, like you've had the privilege of being, top 5 in the nation now for a while. You play big events all throughout the season, and then you go to national championships at the end of the year. And your program is really experiencing almost every event a type of pressure buildup, an increase of pressure to perform big events. And the team has an incredible mix of fun mixed with very competitive, very focused and on outcomes, and it really matters, which I love. I love that mix. What's something you see in under pressure that you see college golfers either doing well and tending to sort of match their capabilities when it really matters, or what maybe some golfers are not able to do well the higher the pressure, and they tend to struggle more when the pressure's really on? What's a piece of that pressure thing for college golfers that they either handle or don't handle?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like you said, you see a little bit of everything. You don't really know how you react until you get into that situation as well. So I would say one thing is experience. I mean, you got to kind of, and sometimes it's almost having to get that experience and then kind of just messing it up a few times to learn from it.
Yeah.
Willingness to learn. That's one of the crazy things. You maybe think back on personal things, or you see kids that just make the same mistake over and over and over again. So one thing you taught us a lot is awareness. I think learning that you're actually doing that thing. It might sound absolutely stupid, but you see guys making the same mistake over and over again. So I think the first thing is awareness. And I think that comes, in my opinion, the guys who have the best process, so the guys who are the most consistent in their routines, in their process, the guys who are the most calm, those are the guys you see making the best decisions, because it really comes down to decision making, right? And typically the things that affect decision making is kind of your momentum or your performance in the moment. So perhaps a guy makes a stupid mistake, makes a double, triple bogey, and then that, or it could even be something as small as maybe a 3-putt, then that kind of fogs their mind, and then their decision making gets cloudy, and then they kind of go down a path that they can really not return from. And I think for me, that's really where going from a player to a coach has been so big, because when you're playing, you kind of just so in your own little world. Whereas when you're a coach and you've come to tournaments with us before, you sit on the same hole, you watch 5 groups come through. So you're seeing like 15 guys, and you're seeing it from a completely different standpoint, So you watch a kid melt down, and you're just like, what is this guy doing? Whereas, we've all been that guy before, but you just, like I said, you see it so much more clearly. So I think that's given me a great opportunity to help some guys be like, walk through things and talk back. So yeah, I think decision making really, and that goes back to what I talk about professionalism. We talk about guys having their, from when they get to the ball, having their process that they go through, their routine, getting their yardage, writing the numbers down in the yardage book. So that doesn't give you the opportunity to get up there and just make some absolutely, boneheaded decision where you just pull out a club and hit. So if you can stick to that process as good as possible, let's say your average time of hitting is 45 seconds. If you can stick to that as closely as possible, that's going to allow you to, stay consistent and make the best decisions. The guys that you see, I mean, they get up there and you can just, shoot over the range trying to pull a club, and they're not even looking at anything. You will see guys, there's been studies that you and I have looked at, people's times change massively in their approach to their shots in different situations. A guy's going to play differently when he's 5 under as he will to when he's 6 or 7 over. So again, consistency and professionalism. I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of the good things in golf are really boring, honestly. Like the things that the top guys do. People want these kind of flashy answers, but if you can just be as boring as possible, I promise you, in the long run, that's going to really help you.
You know, I love talking to you about the perspective from college golf to what you see now as this age and as a coach. And you know, you had a college golf career. You played professionally a bit after college. You had, I think, a great college program that you were a part of at Columbus State in Georgia. And when you think back about Steven as the college golfer, and then post-college, both you played for a while, but even now as a coach, you're still in the game. You're learning more. You're seeing more. You're observing, you know, the human side of it with your golfers every day. And you still teach outside of college coaching as well. You still are a swing instructor. And so when you think about that journey, what's something you wish you could have got your hands around when you were in college that just would have made a big difference for you, you think, when you look back on it?
Yeah, I think the reason I'm so passionate about so many of these things is because I was that guy in so many of those areas. You know, my college coach, who was Mark Immelman, he's just a great influence on me. I think that's kind of one of the reasons I got into coaching, was just see how he impacted my life. You know, I was sloppy, shirt untucked, shoelace untucked. I was that guy. So I came into a pretty strong program where he was, you know, very, very strict. And I like that. I needed that discipline because I'd never really, I'm not saying I didn't have discipline at home, but from the golfing side, I'd never really had structure and purpose. Yeah. And he really gave that to me. And I had some success early on. And then, as I've told you, I had some issues with my short game. So that really held me back. But my biggest regret, I think, when I watch guys and I see guys practice, is just, like I said, that approach to, I wish I'd used my time a little bit better. I was there every day, you know, for 3-4 hours, sometimes more. I felt like I worked hard, but now looking back, I really wasn't like super present when I was practicing. One of the things, actually been speaking with a ex student, and he's playing professionally now, and we're trying to kind of collaborate into our team, is actually practicing. And you've talked about this, like before the week, coming up with a plan. So when you go to the golf course, you know, like if I'm there 3 hours, I'm doing, you know, not just 1 hour putting, I'm doing this game for 15 minutes. I'm focusing on this drill for another 15 minutes and really breaking it down. Like I said, I was very happy-go-lucky. So I was just kind of, you know, if I went to the course and I was going to hit balls and someone said, hey, let's go play 9, I was just, okay, let's go play 9. So yeah, I really wish I had more structure. I definitely came more from the kind of the more natural side of the game. I guess you get your more natural and your more technical kind of guys. Yeah. I was more of your natural, so I didn't really like that whole technical side of it. And I think a lot of it because I didn't understand it. And now that I've got into coaching, I understand a lot better. So yeah, that definitely would be my answer, is if I'd been more structured and dedicated to my specific practice.
I love that. You know, an observation I would say even in me, but we see this, I think, in college players, and again, you and I have touched on this in the past, is when we don't have a structured plan to our practice time, we tend to overestimate the time we spend on certain things and underestimate the time we spend on other things. So the things I love doing, like I love hitting driver, it feels like I haven't spent much time on that when maybe I've done it for a long time, just because it's fun. It's not hard. I enjoy that. But then when I go to work on my chipping, for example, if I really don't like it and I don't feel competent at it, it feels like every minute I'm working on it is 5 minutes. Yeah. So I work on it for 5 minutes. I feel like I've done it for a half hour. And if coach walks by and asks, how long you been doing it? Oh, I worked crazy. And it was like 5 minutes. But it was internally, it was such an angst for me to work on something that I feel incompetent at. You know, maybe that's kind of a man thing too, to work on incompetencies is super hard. And I know you feel that as well, which we can offset with some of the preparation, some of the practice.
Absolutely. And I think that's why if you can design your practice properly, that's one of the things that I've been talking with some others about is, you know, let's say I say, hey, Phil, go practice putting for an hour. You know, after 30 minutes, your back's going to be sore. You're going to kind of, if you're just, you know, the typical practice is just go putt around holes or play little games. But like, just for example, one of the things we do is we'll break your practice up into 3 sections. So you do 20 minutes of technique, 20 minutes of speed drills, and then 20 minutes of games. that 20 minutes goes a lot quicker than an hour, and you're accomplishing something as well. You're going towards a goal. So a lot of times we'll hear guys say, wow, I can't believe, that was so quick, or it really helps break that practice up. So yeah, I think having that structure and that plan really does help. Like I said, I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate now is because, obviously you don't have the opportunity to kind of talk to your 16-year-old or 18-year-old self. I kind of see it as my opportunity being like, hey, I can help the next guy coming up, help these young guys really find that. Because to me, that's the difference maker right there, how you prepare and how you get into that mode.
I love that. Let me ask you one more question, then we'll kind of get into what I want to do at the end. So, we think a lot in terms of, especially when we think of mental game or emotional development, handling that side of the game, we think in terms of adding things like I need to do this more, I need to do that more. But there's always this side too where there's tendencies and habits that I actually need to reduce. I need to stop doing some things. I need to get out of certain tendencies and habits and patterns. Would you see, and again, I know it's very individualized for different golfers, but would you see tendencies in college players that you would say, if they could stop doing this quicker, they would advance in their skill, their output, they would handle pressure a lot better? What's something that's a tendency that college golfers just need to get rid of quicker?
Yeah, I think, you can think on the practice side, you can think on the playing side. Like I said, it's kind of two separate things.
Yeah.
Trying to think. That's a good question. I think one of the things I see gets guys into the most trouble is lack of routine. Guys are one of the things I see is guys are really quick. So those tendencies of just guys playing super fast. And trust me, I'm an advocate for speeding up play. I don't like slow play. One actually now that comes to mind is rangefinders. That just kind of irks me. I have nothing against rangefinders, but the biggest tendency I see is a guy just gets up there, shoots a flag, and then he's good to go. I learned a valuable lesson early on in college when my coach walked with me and caddied for me, and it was the first time I had a headache after a round of golf. So I think, getting your head in the yardage book, for example, like a guy will get up there and it'll be a front flag or whether it's a back flag, and they'll just shoot the flag and get their number and they play the shot exactly the same, So you've kind of been with us in tournaments, and even in practice rounds, we kind of dialed it back to there. You kind of have strategies, areas of the green you want to work to, regardless of where the flag is at. Yeah. So many of these guys these days, they're playing just target golf all the way, So I think that's one tendency I would say, that they're just very quick to just pick a number and go, rather than playing more strategically.
Yeah, it's good. I'll push in one thing. One thing I'll push into that I think would be good for you to share. This might help college golfers. This for sure would help anybody that watches this that's not in college golf but loves the game. One thing I've really learned from you that relates to the mental game is the way you use statistics with your players. So you track a lot of statistics, and then what you emphasize, and I've seen you emphasize this at tournaments, the team meetings before they go out to the course, how you are emphasizing statistics with them is part of how they're handling mistakes.
Yeah.
And so share a little bit just about what that approach has been, and how, because I hear from the golfers in my one-on-ones with them that they're actually applying that thinking on the golf course, and I love that.
Yeah, I think, if you just kind of, stats don't lie. It's kind of like the whole Michael Jordan thing where if you're shooting 98% on free throws and you miss the first two, you kind of just know, all right, I'm going to make the next 98, So we try kind of, and Phil and I are both Michael Jordan junkies, been watching the
that's right.
Learning a lot of mental stuff from that. But yeah, I think it's just, if you can go back to we track the guys' stats throughout the year, just how many putts they're averaging, fairways averaging, greens averaging, birdies, pars, bogeys, the rest. So for example, one of the things we encourage the guys is, a round of golf is, so you play 18 holes. So many people are focusing, they put so much emphasis on the first 6 holes or the first 9 holes, Really, 18 holes, if you've played golf long enough, there's a lot of ways to shoot 72, even par. You've shot 72 shooting 4 under, 4 over. You've done it shooting 5 over, 5 under. So what we try to emphasize to the guys is, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so many guys, when you talk from a mental side, this is where I'd say the mentally weaker guys, if they get off to a good start, if they're 2 under through 6, they're good to go.
Yeah.
Then you know. And if that same guy's 3 over after 6, I mean, there's just panic, there's freak out, and that's where I'd say experience comes in. The more experienced guys, and then I think also just the guys that have a deeper trust in their game. Because you see these guys shoot 68, and then you play 36 holes. The afternoon they shoot 86, and literally, that round just hangs on a knife's edge. You and I have talked about that. How some guys are so fickle to where literally one hole or one shot can really turn the round from going that way or going that way. And so what we encourage guys to do, we have team meetings every night. We'll talk before the round and say, like, hey, if you find yourself in a situation of being 3 over after 6 holes, it's not a good start. But statistically, your average guy, he might have average of 5 bogeys around and 3 birdies or 4 birdies. So that's going to be a 73 kind of guy, which is a decent stroke average in college. If you've made 3 bogeys after 6 holes, what I'll tell the guys, hey, the next 12 holes, if you just trust your stats, you're going to probably make 2 more bogeys, and you're more than likely going to make 3 or 4 birdies.
Yeah.
So just wait, be patient. Because the biggest thing we see is that guy gets to 3 over. Next hole, he hits it in the trees. There's a tiny gap with, over water, and then there's a punch up to 100 yards. Now the guy's thinking, okay, I'm 3 over. I really wanted to shoot even. If I punch it up, man, there's a good chance I'm making bogey. I'm going to be 4 over. The next hole's tough. So they start thinking, completely out of the moment. And then they go for that tough shot, make a triple bogey. Now they're 7 over after 5. And, head is spinning. You can't see a thing in front of them. And that's how a guy who's hitting it perfectly shoots 85. Because they just make, horrible decisions. And again, I'm maybe being a bit harsh here saying horrible decisions. Because when you're in the moment, you're thinking, we've all thought like that before, So again, it goes back to that clarity that I talked about, just really being okay with making that decision. Because what I tell a 73 or 74 guy, like, hey, even if you don't make those birdies coming in that statistical analysis, you're going to shoot 76. Like, that's not that bad. If you're a good player and you shoot 76 in the first round, you can still win the tournament. You can shoot 68 and have a top 5 or win the tournament. If you shoot 85, there's no golf that can save you from still coming back to win that tournament.
I love that. I
always try and encourage the guys, like, think back after the round and be like, I want you to, after the round, think back and be able to say, like, wow, I got everything out of that round, even if it was a 75. Because the worst feeling is when you're driving home from South Carolina for 6 hours and you're thinking, dang, if I just chipped out on that hole, or if I just done that, you can see these guys adding these strokes up and thinking, I could have been top 5, I could have been top 10. So we don't want that feeling on the way home.
No doubt. And I know this is applicable for many of your players. A lot of the ones I work with one-on-one will, they'll send me a scorecard after a round, or I'll look online if the tournament's being tracked that way. And the questions I'll ask is, hey, it looks like at this point things were heading in a bad direction. Like, what did you do to stabilize that? And I'll often hear from them, well, I know I get 2.4 birdies around, so I hadn't had them yet. They had to be coming.
Yeah.
And I thought, that sounds like what I hear Steven say.
One little technique we use, I'll give real quick, is this something I heard from Jason Day. Was he was playing some tournament, got off to a horrible start. It was like 5 over after 5, which in the pro realm is awful. And he said he literally took his scorecard and drew a line and said, okay, I'm putting those 5 holes away. I'm starting this tournament over. Because there's just something about the mental mindset of being even par that just gives people comfort, Yeah. And we've used that with guys a few times, and they really, it helps them. If you can just,
I love that.
You shoot 2 under from there, you've played a decent round, and it kind of takes it away, and you're not playing in that urgent mode. So, a little tip maybe if someone's listening, just draw a line in the card and start fresh.
And it's a good example because we all have this ability at the turn after the front 9 and we're playing bad. We all have the ability to say, oh, fresh 9, I'm going to play better, which is all just
fresh 12.
Right. What about a fresh 16?
Exactly.
And all of that is just because we've been conditioned to think of the game as 9 and 9. So
how often does your local golfer say, "Man, I shot 47 on the front, and then I shot 36 on the back"? I'm like, well, that didn't happen by accident,
That's exactly right. Thank you, Steven. This is so good, man. I could keep this conversation going for forever, but we're going to wrap this up a little bit. So I want to do what I'm doing with everybody in my interviews. I call this the back 9. And as you know, the Masters doesn't begin till the back 9 on Sunday. Yep. So we'll wrap up with some back 9. I'll give you 9 questions, kind of just random, quick responses. You don't have to expound on the answers a lot, just what comes to mind, okay? And you have No preparation for this at all. So you have two amazing young kids. What's your favorite thing about being a dad?
I like cosplaying with my kids. That's my favorite.
that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. All-time favorite athlete in any sport?
Tiger Woods by far.
Tiger Woods, good. One food you miss the most from your home country of South Africa?
Ooh, we got a thing called biltong. It's kind of like beef jerky. It's really, really good. A lot of Americans that try it, they really like it. Biltong. It's very good.
Nice. All right, cool. Person who had the most impact on getting you started in golf when you were young?
Probably my brother. Yeah, I thought my brother was really cool. He was older than me, and him and his friends started. So everything they did, he probably doesn't even know this, but everything they did, we wanted to do. So my brother, yeah.
Was he good?
He's very athletic, so he kind of, it came so easy to him that he stopped playing. But now he likes it more than I do. He's about a 10. He's pretty solid.
Okay. All right. I love that. I love that. Pushed by the older brother. Favorite golf course you've ever played?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to play Augusta National, so I would say that that was
Wow.
a no-brainer for me. Yeah, I played there a couple times and very fortunate. Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
Wow. Well, we got to have further conversation about that. I
Got
think you might have
76 of
told
the
me that.
tips. 76 of the tips, so that wasn't too bad.
Ooh, all right. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, this may or may not take some thinking.
All right.
Worst tee shot you ever hit in competition?
Oh man, I've hit a lot. That's probably the worst part of my game is my driver. But there was one I won't forget this. I played a tournament back home. It was the South African Amateur Qualifier, and there was kind of like a double fairway, and I was making it pretty easily. Just had a bogey like the last hole, so I aimed kind of down the middle of the double fairway, away from the water on the left, and it was pretty windy, and I just blocked this thing, and the wind got it, and it went all the way across the other fairway into the water on the other side. Made triple, missed it by one. It was awful. So it'll stick with me.
Wow, we've all been there, right? Um, least favorite thing a small college coach has to do?
Oh, that is so easy. Receipts. I hate doing receipts at the end of the month. It's we'll go on the road and you'll come back, you have 70 receipts, and we have this thing where you have to take photos of them, and it takes like 3 hours. It's terrible. I hate it.
I love
Any
it.
part of my job I probably dislike, I would say.
Number 8. One thing you do before every single tournament that your team's getting ready to play. What for you is a routine? Like, I have to do this one thing before the tournament starts.
That's kind of tough. I mean, I'd say we have a meeting, so I feel like I'm a pretty controlled person. I like having control. So if we didn't have that meeting, I guess I would say every night before a round we meet. So if we didn't have that meeting, I would kind of feel a little bit weird. I don't have any like superstitions though.
Okay.
So we go to the grocery store as well. We go to Walmart every Sunday night before our tournament, and we get our little things.
I love it. All right, last one. If a player on your team were going to say a word or a phrase that everybody on the team would know they were imitating, impersonating, or making fun of Coach Payne, what would they likely say?
Probably one of the phrases I say a lot is bogeys don't kill you. So we've got a little phrases we say in our meetings, but no, that's probably one. I've probably got a bunch of them, but that's the first one that came to mind. Bogeys will never kill a round of golf. And that kind of comes from, what we were talking about earlier. Very seldom are you going to shoot 85 by making 13 bogeys and 5 pars. So typically those rounds come from guys just making a bunch of big numbers. So
that's good. Before I post this video, I might have to take a poll of all the team and see if anybody can guess the right answer. That'd be awesome. Well, that's it, man. Steven, thank you so much for taking the time today. This is awesome. I always love talking to you. And never get enough of it. And I'm excited for the people that get to watch this to hear some of your wisdom. You're always pushing my forever learning down the road, and you mean a lot to me, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, likewise, thank you very much. I appreciate the work you do with our guys. I think, like I said, a lot of people often overlook that mental side. We appreciate the work you're doing with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
See you. Bye.